Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where and when you are listening to this. This is Coffee with Kevin, and I am grateful. That's my cup today. That's my coffee cup, and this is my coffee, by the way. Mm. It's really, really good. And I'm Kevin. Kevin Martin, a mindset coach and hypnotherapist with positive effects coaching and hypnosis. Yes, we're here today again, another Tuesday. It's been over 5 years. We've been doing this over 5 years, and it is just so great, so rewarding. I run into people that say, "Hey, you're the coffee guy, Coffee with Kevin, aren't you?" I never even heard of them. I've never seen them. We got a lot of people that watch and don't comment, and it's great. But I really like comments. I really like to know you're there. When we're live, we only see the comments live on Facebook for the most part. I'm not sure whether the app has been updated enough to be able to do others. But if you're out there, please chat, please comment. I would appreciate that. Let's see. I am going to. I can see things on LinkedIn, and I can see things on YouTube, and I can see things on the other. There we go. Good morning, Brenda. We Facebook is working, so if you're on Facebook, you want to chime in, go right ahead. Well, this morning it is, believe it or not, the 14th of January. We're halfway through January in 2025 already. We're halfway, 1/24th of the year is done already. It is amazing. It is incredible. It is really, really cool. It truly is. Um, yeah, you might not think so if the time's going by so fast, but it doesn't have to go by so fast. You can enjoy the things that are happening. Be mindful. That's our mindfulness, right? You can be mindful of what's going on, and the days go by a bit slower. Days will go by a bit slower, and just enjoying everything. Days go by fast, and when they go by fast and you don't even remember what you did, that's when it's not too great. That's when it's not too great. I had, just before we got on, I got on a minute late because as I'm getting on, my whole browser, and I had dozens of sessions open and tabs open in my browsers, and they all just went kaput. They all just disappeared. So I had some things ready for you, and it went away. Yes, it did. That's all right. That's all right. Well, being January 14th, what happened on this day? What big thing happened on this day? The Today Show, if you watch it, I used to watch it. It started in 1952. It started in 1952. Um, Famous birthdays for today: Benedict Arnold. Oh my goodness, Benedict Arnold. When you hear that, you hear traitor. And I was at the place that he actually went to meet with the British in old Quebec City. It's a it's like a palace. It's like a castle. It's really, really cool. But I've recently saw that there's some books and some studies out that are showing Benedict Arnold not as a traitor but as a hero. So perhaps he was actually working for the U.S. when he was meeting with the British and looking like a traitor. I don't know. I didn't do a deep dive into the studies, but you know what? Hey, that's okay. It's LL Cool J's birthday today. He was on It's NCIS Los Angeles, one of my favorite shows, and I got to appreciate him as an actor. I was never big on rappers, and he was a rapper, but yeah, when I got to see him as an actor, I got to appreciate him a lot. And Jason Bateman, who's been on so many movies and TV shows and stuff like that. It's his birthday today. 56 years old for Jason and 57 for LL Cool J. And that is Faye Dunaway as well. It's her birthday. And Faye Dunaway, if I remember right, is 84. I think she played on the original King Kong movie. Anyway, that's what's going on today. Let's talk about what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is EQ, emotional quotient, actually, more emotional intelligence. I think it's the first time I pick up this subject here. I was not always big on talking about this subject, more so because I didn't quite fully understand the subject. And you might say, hey, Kevin, oh, it's my grandson Noah's birthday. I just saw that. Well, happy birthday, Noah, as well. There's another big birthday today. You might say, Kevin, you're a hypnotherapist, you're a mindset coach. How can you not know what emotional intelligence is? And truthfully, when I first came out, when you call it an EQ, and I thought something very basic things about it. And I said, yeah, that's really all I need, to know about it. And I didn't think much. But then, I started doing a deeper dive and I realized that emotional intelligence is something that I was very well aware of, just not packaging it in the name of emotional intelligence or EQ. It simply is the fact that you can use, the fact that you be aware of your emotions and control your emotions to some degree. And that's funny because it's all the work I do with my clients, with hypnotherapy, because I deal with emotional stress, I deal with mental emotional issues, and I help them clear their emotional baggage so they don't have to feel that emotion. And then I teach them how to control their emotions. And so I've been working in the world of emotional intelligence for 20 years. I just never really used the label for that. Now, emotional intelligence is a being aware of your own emotions, and keeping them intact. In other words, not just reacting, right? And when you don't have a high EQ or high emotional intelligence, you allow yourself to react, which means you got to trigger. Someone says something, someone does something, and all of a sudden, boom, you get angry, you get sad, you get guilty, you get afraid, you get fearful, without actually stopping to think, hey, what's going on here in the moment? What's going on here in the moment? And that's people who have a low EQ. And also, there's another side to emotional intelligence. It's being able to identify emotions on other people and being able to really, you know, give a little bit of feeling for what they're doing. That's called empathy. Okay, there is other labels, there is other names, right? It's being able to be empathetic. And you might say, Kevin, if I'm not empathetic, how do I learn to be empathetic? One of the easiest ways to learn to be empathetic is to try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to put yourself in their shoes. So whatever they're talking about, whatever situation they might be experiencing, if you want to be empathetic, you say, well, how would I feel if this happened to me? It's funny, put yourself in their shoes is a big thing in the world of neurolinguistic programming. There's part of neurolinguistic programming that talks about different perceptions. Your perception that you have now And mostly all your waking hours is your perception from yourself looking out. So you see things happening and you react or you judge or whatever it is from your point of view, looking at someone else doing something. And then there's another perception actually as being in their point of view, in their shoes. So you put yourself in their shoes and they try to experience what they're experiencing. And then there's a third perception looking at both yourself and the other person. And that's a perception of communications and interaction and saying, how is this working? How are these two placing themselves? So, yeah, they're different perceptual perceptions, positional perceptions, I believe, um, help. And so that's part of the CQ is being able to put yourself in other people's positions. So let me tell you a little story. I guess my first encounter when I encountered someone that didn't have an EQ, didn't really understand intelligence, but they went mostly by logic, mostly. Just started work, and I was working in an engineering department, and ran into a couple of engineers that had very high IQs. It's not always the case, but it is often the case. If someone has a high IQ, they don't necessarily have a high EQ. So one of them was talking about another friend of mine, and he wanted to date her. And he asked, you know, he was going to ask her out. And yeah, I was just listening. He said, well, this guy's pretty good. He's really super intelligent, but he's kind of extremely nerdy. Now, the idea in the comment for nerdy was he just acted like a geek. He was extremely intelligent. So my friend told me afterwards that he asked her out. And he asked her out. He says, hey, would you like to go out for dinner? And she said, yeah. She said, okay. He said, well, if we go out for dinner, then can we split? We're going to pay for ourselves, right? And then after we go out for dinner and go to the hotel, do you want to split that too? Or you want me to cover the cost? This is him talking, not realizing that it was all logic from his point of view. There was no emotion involved at all. She just laughed. This was one of my first experiences in someone who had a extremely low EQ, extremely low. And there was another engineer who I was actually became really good friends, and he was dating my boss at the time, and they went out on the first date, and he had a mention to her. He said, if you lost a little weight in your caboose, you wouldn't be half bad. This is a first date. They really just started building rapport. But this was, again, another statement from someone who didn't have an idea of an emotional impact of language. There were two great people. They did eventually get together, and for quite a long time. It may still be together to this day. I haven't talked to them in years. But those are examples of what happens when you have a low EQ. But of course, the severity is much bigger when it comes into working relationships or personal relationships. Um, and one person can't control or not aware of their own emotions, and certainly not aware of the other person's emotions. It gets very difficult. It gets very difficult. Now, EQ became big in the business world, big in business because, you know, you can no longer run a team. You can no longer, you know, work employees without having feeling for what they may be going through. Okay, for what kind of stress they may be under in work, and for what kind of stress that comes from home life as well, because that often bothers us at work. So you can no longer, you know, throw that away and just use pure logic and say you have to do this, because teams won't work well together, because employees won't stay long if their EQ is not accounted for, if their emotions are not accounted for to a degree, of course, but it just has to be something that can be recognized. It has to be something that can be recognized. So there are four components of emotional intelligence. Is self-awareness. This is what I mean, being self-aware when your emotions are coming up, when you're reacting. And then there's self-management. It's controlling impulsive feelings and behavior. So this is still all on your side. And the best practice for that is pause. You know, more of a practice is being aware first. So you're aware enough to pause. Hey, I'm about to react and say, oh man. By the way, a friend of mine, and I've said this many times, Lisa Shermerhorn, we business partner and friend, she would always say, when I start to react, I stop and think, what is it inside of me that is the problem? Not the person or the event or whatever it is that's causing the reaction. She looks inside first. So that's a nice pause and nice introspection. Social awareness, understanding the emotions of others and empathizing with their feelings, just as I mentioned. You know, active listening can help. Active listening, a lot of, okay, what did you just say? Repeat it back to them. There's two types of active listening. You can repeat it, the exact words that you heard, back to that person, so they can hear those words and they can check on, hey, did I really say this? Or you can repeat your version of what they just said, so they can check on, did you get the right meaning? But active listening in both ways is actually causing you to really try to get what they're saying. And relationship management, using emotional awareness to navigate social dynamics. All right, you can approach disagreements with curiosity instead of defensiveness. How often do we get defensive when we get into a disagreement with somebody? Curiosity says, okay, I want to know more about why you think the way you think. Yeah, in my head, it might be, I want to know more about why you're so wrong, which wouldn't be the best approach, but I might think that. Well, say, good morning, happy New Year to you. Oh, it's been ages. That's great. Good to see you. So basically, we're talking about emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence comes down to two things: being aware and having some control of your own emotions, and then being aware of others' emotions and working with them appropriately. That's emotional intelligence. Now, if you're totally not aware of your own or anybody else's, you got an extremely low EQ. If you're highly sensitive of others, if you're an empath, and you're very aware of what's happening inside of you, and you have the ability to really, to a degree, control. No, we can't control our emotions 100%, but when we can stop and pause and say, hey, what's going on, we have much more control over it. So that would be a very high EQ. So, obviously, it sounds like it's better for us and the people around us to have a decent EQ, to have that awareness of both ourselves and others, and that makes it best for everyone, doesn't it? Okay, this has been Coffee with Kevin. I thank you for listening, whether you're listening live or you're listening later. Please, please comment and please share if you like this subject. We would appreciate it, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on YouTube, or you're listening on Facebook. I would really appreciate it if you could comment and share if you like what we're talking about. All right, till next week. Till next week, I will continue to be grateful for you and for everything that I have. Take care, all. Have an incredible day. Matter of fact, I don't need to wish it to you because it's in your control. You can make it an incredible day. You know that. Bye bye.